Hello everybody, Abed's brother here, and today we're going to take a look at the performance of old PCs playing Borderlands 2 on Linux. Borderlands 2 was developed by Gearbox Software, published by 2K, and released on PC September 18th, 2012. It uses the Unreal 3 engine and the DirectX 9 API. On screen right now you can see the minimum and recommended PC specifications for playing the game on Windows. Not a very demanding game, as you can see. For our first test system, we will be using the A107870K with the iGPU disabled and the AMD Firepro W5100. So the settings should be on screen right now. The goal here was to get, it's mostly low settings with medium textures, and the goal here was to get 60 FPS at the best moments. So you can see here we're running around Sanctuary. We're staying above 60 the entire time. The problem here is going to be once we get in combat with explosions and all the effects going off, is the frame rate, how low is the frame rate going to dip? Borderlands 2 as a DirectX 9 game is a little more CPU centric, so you do need better CPUs will get better results, and the A107870K is kind of slow on that front. So the fact we're getting over 60 in Sanctuary is a good sign, but we'll see how it goes once we actually get into combat. But the game still looks pretty good. It's got that that cartoony look that isn't to everybody's taste. It does help prevent it from aging as much as some other games of the time. So we are going into Tundra Express. I picked Tundra Express for this because on Windows, this particular approach right here has a very long draw distance and always bottlenecked hard on a lot of old Windows systems. And you can see we're still holding pretty well here. But now we're going to get some fire going. And that's another reason I chose Tundra Express. Bloodshot Stronghold is another place with a lot of that was graphically demanding, but it's a little too narrow. Yes, you do have some long draw distances, but it's not quite as open as this level. And you can see we are dipping under 60 now. But the good news is we're not using much video memory at all. That's one of the big advantages to a game this old, is that we're only using 1.4 gigs of VRAM. So 60s, dipping to, it looks like, the mid-50s when we're in combat. We're going to do a little more combat over here. But yeah, if you have a 2 GB card, if you have a R7 260X, you'll probably get a little bit better frame rate than this, because you'll have a few extra shaders. There's 53. Probably get a little bit better performance, but yeah, this is definitely one for a 2 gig card. You should be able to handle this just fine. This is Proton 9.0-4, and I have had people in the past say I should be running Proton Experimental or something like that. The reason I don't is that Proton Experimental is a moving target. So, you know, it gets a lot more updates, which is better if you want to be on the cutting edge. But if I'm trying to make what is basically a benchmarking run here, and for making a benchmarking run, a fixed target is a lot more helpful. Test System 2, we're going to a new system, an i5-4590, paired with a GTX 670. And here we are basically medium settings. Medium textures, medium settings. The big deal here is ambient occlusion. I tested with ambient occlusion off and on, and with ambient occlusion on, I lost about 20 FPS. That would put us right around the 60 FPS mark. So I didn't want to drop under 60 at all with the GTX 670, because the 670 is from this era. Like Borderlands 2, GTX 670 was still a very viable card when Borderlands 2 came out. It was a very decent mid-range option. You still had the 680, and the 690 was the dual card, and then Nvidia refreshed Kepler, came out with the Titan, so then the original Titan was a Kepler card. So the 670 should be able to handle this without any problem, and I wanted it to not drop under 60. That meant instead of doing, oh, max settings, no, it's basically medium settings. There are no presets in Borderlands 2, but you can see we're varying between 70 and 90 here in Sanctuary. But now let's head to Tundra Express and see what happens there. So was important here to get, again, good single-core performance, because the NVIDIA driver is a little bit CPU bottlenecked. And we're holding pretty steady here. So this is very good performance from the 670. I am using a custom Proton for this. This is Proton Sarek 10-17-async. There's an asynchronous and non-asynchronous version of Proton for the 670 for Proton Sarek, and the game stuttered with the ordinary Proton Sarek and didn't with the Proton Async, so I'm using the asynchronous one. But this is very, very smooth. This is very smooth. You can see we are dropping to just about 60 in the heavy combat, but we're not getting stutters or bumps on the frame time graph. This is just a very, very smooth experience. And if you have an old Kepler card and are looking to play some games on it, this is definitely one I can recommend. Because to me, this is very impressive for an old card. I mean, on Windows, you'd be like, of course, the GTX 670 should play Borderlands 2 without any trouble. But, you know, configuring some of these things for Linux, it's, you're like, oh, I don't know. Is it still going to work? Is it not going to work? But no, this is very impressive. And he kicked me down to the Varkid nests. Very impressive indeed. So yes, 670, Borderlands 2, very good showing here. For the third test system, we're using the FX-8320e paired with the R9 290. Now the main thing to watch for here is that, like the A1070-870K, I mean, the FX-8320e's single-core performance on Windows is not the best, but the 290 is still a powerful GPU, especially at 1080p in a game this old, so we are at maximum settings here. And this is really kind of a showcase for how the Linux task scheduler makes the FX chip a lot more viable than it was on Windows. You can see we are up over 100 FPS. In some cases, with the shortened draw distance, we're even up over 150, but around 100 is a bit more normal. It's all about the number of objects on screen here, and the fewer objects we have on screen, the higher the frame rate's going to be. And yeah, we dip a little bit there. The most I think you can reasonably expect from this setup, the FX plus the R9 290, is to lock the frame at 60 and you'll get a solid, smooth experience. It does dip to 90, you saw that once. Let's see what it does in combat. But I'm expecting we're going to see the frame rate dip coming out of this little valley here. Yeah, look at the GPU usage. GPU usage is dipping, so we are a little bit CPU bound right here. And we're down to 658. Oh, we dipped. Yeah, that's almost certainly on the CPU. But that's why I picked that section for testing. And let's see what we get with the flyer. Well, we dipped to 85 right there. Still very good. Still not as bad as I feared, and not as bad as I have experienced with an FX chip on Windows. So whether it's the Linux task scheduler or just the more greater CPU efficiency of Vulkan, the FX and R9 FX-8320e and R9 290 is proving to be a very decent combination so far in Linux. Come on, kill that thing, yeah. Damn, they build these Varkid pods are getting built awfully fast. So, very smooth, no particular configuration to do on this system. You know, that's the nice thing with testing Radeon GPUs on Linux. You just get the driver and get the right driver loaded at boot, and away you go. The GTX 670, I actually had to do quite a few things to get it to work right. It was a little bit... It wasn't hard, it was just tedious. And that's partially the problem with my capture card, because anytime I hook up a new install Linux, the Linux immediately defaults to the maximum resolution. Test system 4. Going to the i7-4790 and GTX 1066GB. And this is the last one that I chose for this particular test, because we are basically maxed out, and I was going to look at PhysX effects, but you can see the option is grayed out. I was expecting to be able to turn it on, turn PhysX on, and it would use the CPU render path. But it's grayed out and I can't adjust it at all. Obviously, I could go into the config file, probably, and change it, but we'll just leave it off. You can see we're getting a lot of FPS here. And this is at max settings with no physics. We are getting a lot of FPS. The i7-4790's better single-core speed is really paying off here. And GTX 1060 6GB is just really powerful for a game this old, so I'm not planning to even bother testing the GTX 980 or Radeon Vega in this one, because I feel like we've reached peak performance here, and you know the game is going to perform well in those two, on those two systems. But let's see how bottlenecked we are coming through the gap here, because the R9 290 was bottlenecked. Oh, we got a little bottlenecked. It was bottlenecked by the FX chip. We are bottlenecked here as well to about, I saw 84 FPS. So that goes down to the original, to the DirectX 9 API that Borderlands 2 uses. It is definitely a little more CPU restrictive. If you get a faster... Damn, he hatched fast. If you get a faster CPU, you're going to get better performance. So if you have a 4790K and you have it overclocked to like 4.2, 4.4 gigahertz, you're probably going to see a better result here. But no, this is still really good. We got a few little stutters and bumps there, but I don't think it's that terrible. Oh, you know what I bet it is with the Varkids? I bet this is. I don't think I did Mighty Morphin on this Borderlands 2 run. That's where you have to inject the Varkid pods. I don't think I did Mighty Morphin, so maybe they're extra spawns because of that.
Stay still.
I would say good for 120 FPS, but it's not. We are dipping quite regularly, and you can see we're only at about 80% GPU utilization, so even here the 1060 is being bottlenecked by the 4790. We're still good for 60 FPS, at least. But definitely need some better CPU. But a very good performance from all systems in this game, as expected, because this is an older game after all. And you would expect it to run well, and it does. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got on that. But wait, there's more. We have a bonus. And the bonus is the Linux port. Borderlands 2 does have a dedicated Linux port. And the Linux port is by Aspire Media and published by Aspire Media. It was released on PC September 30th, 2014, so that's almost 2 years after the game launched. And you can see the recommended system specs on screen, and it says Intel iGPUs and ATI chipsets not supported. But I am going to be testing it with the Firepro system. And spoiler, it actually does work okay. So I don't know what that was about the ATI stuff not being supported, but the reason I'm testing, and it's the same settings as I had when I tested the A10 system earlier in this video. And the reason I'm testing on the lowest end system in my lineup is that the only people who should use the dedicated Linux port of Borderlands 2 are people with systems that can't run Vulkan. So we're talking terascale GPUs like the HD5850 from Radeon, or Fermi GPUs like the GTX 560, 570, 580. If you have one of those in a retro build and you want to run Linux, you can't use Vulkan or the Proton without flipping it to the OpenGL fork, and that will run worse than the dedicated Linux port. So you should use the Linux port. And you can see this. It's not running too bad. We're running around 60. Doesn't look quite right though. Something looks off. But we're running around 60. Not terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. It's close to what we were getting with Proton. Okay, something definitely does not look right. It's not even that bottlenecked. I mean, again, we're dipping a little bit under 60, but it's not that bad. Oh, you know what it is? It is... I remember this. When they released this port, people complained about this. And I think it's dynamic lighting and dynamic shadows. That's what it is. And I remember people complained about this, and Aspire Media was just like, yeah, we had to disable the dynamic lighting and the dynamic shadows to get decent performance. And people complain about it. So that's what it is. That's why things look very flat. Like there's the snow is too bright and the lighting looks very uniform. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to find out how to edit the config file to turn the... Oh wow, we dipped to 36 there, even with the dynamic lighting turned off. I'm going to look up to see how to edit the config file to turn the lighting and shadows back on. I mean, I could play the game like this, but, if you don't have a reason to, why would you? Should just use Proton. You're giving up a DLC, too, Commander Lilith DLC. Okay. So, I turned the dynamic lighting back on, and, it looks the way it should now, but we lost a lot of FPS doing that. How much... I'm going to edit something in here. Yeah, so this should be side by side right now. see how much FPS we lost. I think we lost about 20 FPS by turning on dynamic lighting. Yeah, that's not good. It looks correct. Now, if you have a, I don't know, a 5700, a Ryzen 5000 series, it probably will perform fine. I'm going to edit in, yeah, okay, it should be edited in another side-by-side here. Yeah, I think it's about 20 FPS off. Certainly doesn't feel right or look right without the dynamic lighting on. I mean, realism isn't the point of Borderlands 2 anyway. Oh, wow. Wow. Whoa. Yeah, the CPU is not overloaded, it's just... This is a very, very, I don't know what the word is, unoptimized render path on this Linux port if you turn on the dynamic lighting. I saw 29 FPS there for a second. Ooh, Iridium. I saw 29 FPS there for a second. If you lock it to 30 FPS, you might get away with it like this. Let's see. Oh, I forgot. I was thinking this was still Maya, and it's not. All right, well, that was kind of a downer to end on. Borderlands 2 runs great using Proton, and if you have a old system and it can run Proton, and Kepler GPUs are the earliest generation GPUs from Nvidia that can run Proton, I do recommend you do it that way, because the Linux port is a last resort. It does run fine, but it doesn't look right without dynamic lighting and shadows, and when you turn them on, the performance is absolutely terrible. So yes, with Proton, if you've got an FX chip, a 290, Haswell, a Haswell i5, and a 1060, 1050, you're probably going to get very good performance out of Borderlands 2. That's all I got for you, people. Hope you enjoyed the video. If it was useful to you, please give it a thumbs up, and thanks for watching. Bye.